And we're back. I heard you when you said podcast. I'm Justin. This is Stacy. We're not doctors and we don't play one on the internet. But, and that's a big but, Sir Mix-a-Lot.
I see you.
You see me?
I see you coming with my love language today. I
knew you would. But we can make your life better. And that's what we're here to do. So, Stacy, what's up?
Good morning, my friend. Hey, I'll drink to that. We'll take our coffee. If you're watching, both of us have a liquid courage. No, not what did we call it? Liquid tolerance juice.
Liquid tolerance juice. Yeah, that was one of your clients, right?
Actually, she's not a client. She's just a nice stranger on the internet who loves us, who sent me a Starbucks gift card for sugar-free liquid tolerance juice.
Look at that. Liquid tolerance juice. So there you go, internet.
Liquid tolerance juice.
Internet undefeated, 100%.
100% undefeated. So speaking of internet undefeated, we are introducing something a little bit new to our podcast today that Justin had asked me to do a while ago. And I did it this week. And I posted a question on my Instagram story of what does the internet want to know about us randomly? And I find now, if it's anonymous, people are going to tell us the truth. If it's just a little box on my story, ain't no one answering that question. But when people have some anonymity, that's a fun word to say. Anonymity.
Yeah, sounds like Finding Nemo. Anonymity.
Yeah, anonymity. That they get a little bit more courage. So I'm going to start with a fun one that we both know the answer to. What is the thing that is the most annoying about the other person?
Song quotes.
That is not what I thought you were going to say.
No, that would definitely be it.
Okay.
It's almost somewhere in the middle because it is charming to sometimes, but there's sometimes where like I'm really trying to make a point with a client or with you, and you just throw. It's like the Sir Mix-a-Lot thing that I just came out with because I knew that you like that, but you just like throw this random, like Taylor Swift said, whatever, or like, like Gwen Stefani said, ain't no hollaback girl or something like that, right? You like throw that in there and I'm like, haha, it's very funny. Okay, let's move on. But it's about a 50-50 shot. Sometimes it strikes me as, yeah, that was comical. And sometimes it strikes me as, okay, that's annoying.
Okay, real question. Would you like it to be less?
No.
You want me to keep it?
The question was, what do you find annoying? Not what do you want to, what do I want you to say less of?
Oh, I understand what the question is. It was just now that we're talking about it, just noticing. Okay.
Well, I can't dampen your spirit, but what is it that that I do in my perfect existence that you find annoying?
Your perfect existence? Your untimeliness.
Being late.
Mm-hmm. Your untimeliness.
Wow. I think that about does it for this podcast, folks. We will see you next time.
Oh, wait, hold on. A close second was the wink in your tongue out, if that makes it feel any better.
The wink and the tongue out. Do we need to like show that to people on the YouTube?
Just for reference, I think you should, just so people could either agree. And so you need to know, for those of you who are listening, he busts that out the same way that I bust out a song lyric at the most inappropriate time, completely out of context, just to move me. It's never in a way like that's helpful or moving us forward or anything. It's like, hey, let me throw a boulder and just completely derail her right now. Is that the intent?
Sometimes it's the facial version of the song lyrics, right? That's what it is. It's to add humor and lightheartedness to the conversation, sometimes inappropriately so, but it's okay. God. We get through it.
Okay, next question. Could you order for each other at restaurants, like each other's menu likes and dislikes?
This is going to be very context dependent on this one, because if we're talking about drive-through, right? I don't know what that would be. Chick-fil-A, Starbucks, stuff like that, whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
could I could probably wrap that up pretty good and have about a 80% success rate of like, yep, this is exactly what I would get. Uh, should it be a more expansive menu? Like a Chili's, for example. Let's go there.
Okay. Okay. Let's
Because
do it. Let's do it.
most people will know at least what that is. I can't do something like that's like state dependent. Then I don't know that I would have the right answer. I feel about 50 to 60% confident that I would have a decent answer. And I'm feeling something more like in the Cobb salad category. Am I getting close?
Okay. First of all, I don't even know what's on the Chili's menu because I haven't eaten at a Chili's in so long. But I was a waitress at a Chili's a time way back when. No, I wouldn't get a Cobb salad. I would probably get like a chicken soft taco
Okay.
or something protein and something like that didn't have a bun. Their chips and salsa is amazing.
Yeah,
But
we figured that was a standard, like that was already on the table. But what was the main thing that you would order? And I took my shot, got it wrong, but it is what it is.
yeah, but also we haven't really gone out to eat together.
No. A lot of the eating that we've done together has been in each other's homes, or if we were out, it was cooked. Like if we were together but with another party, it was actually cooked in home a lot of the times too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get to. We'll get to in 2 weeks. We could test this out. We could play a menu game and bring people with us.
Do I see you in 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Damn. Okay. Well, guess I might go to the grocery store.
In 2 weeks?
Yeah, in 2 weeks.
Well, we're going to be
not until then.
And just try not to get me, allergic reactions. I think I could. I think that I could order for you pretty successfully.
Okay, at Chili's. Let's go. Let's see it. What's up?
Oh, shit. You're putting me on the spot.
Well,
okay.
I had to do it. What?
Okay, I'm going to go with fajitas.
Oh, that's an amazing. Yeah, you're right. Spot on.
Really? Did I get it?
Yeah, it would pretty much be anything that is meat forward, and that's like the most broad term that I can think of. But like fajitas, a steak, a chicken breast with like mushrooms and onions or something like that. So, yeah.
Hold on, we have been to a restaurant together. We went to Texas Roadhouse with the whole fam. Now I remember. When we were in Colorado, the whole fam went to Texas Roadhouse.
We did do that because you remember. Do you remember what I made everybody laugh? How I made everybody laugh?
No, but tell me again.
So in Texas Roadhouse, how they sing "Happy Birthday" or they don't. They sing "Happy Birthday" and they're make them get on the little saddle or whatever. It's so and so's birthday, and everybody's like, "I want to give a Texas Roadhouse yeehaw." So I was like, "Yeehaw!" And then right as the halls are like dying down, I just go, "Hell yeah!" And everybody just cracks up laughing. Yeah, it was amazing.
So loud. Like the whole restaurant was okay. I have one that I have 2 more questions.
Okay.
One of them, I'm just going to tee this up and it's going to make your little heart so happy. Are you ready? Adjust your seat. Okay, take a breath in, adjust your seat, because you're about to make the face I love that you make when I just tee up a functional case for you, like in saying that people don't sweat and your whole body just feels like, come to me. You want to work with me right now?
That's when my body starts to sweat.
Okay, real question.
Okay.
How can you begin to see if you have inflammation in your body or if it's just tension and stress?
The difference in noticing inflammation versus just tension and stress. Okay. So one bigger indicator that I would say is if it is inflammation, first of all, what's the symptom? Right? Is it just something like you get a tight muscle or you get a tightness in your chest or you get like a headache? Or does it come across as a little bit of a skin rash, a digestive upset, which is probably the most common one? Does it come as trouble, like trouble concentrating or trouble gathering your thoughts, things like that? And the reason I'm going down that route is I think the symptom tells a little bit more of the story generally than if it's just tension and stress, which I would, you're kind of splitting hairs there in some way, shape, or form. But if it's inflammation, you're most likely going to notice some type of biological backlash, right? So not just a headache, but like maybe it's you eat the same thing you always eat, but your stomach hurts, or or the texture of your stools change, or you start to get itchy or hot, or you start to either excessively sweat or your sweating reduces, right? I mean, there's a lot of different things that could be underlying inflammation, and it's not the end all be all to it, but those are some things that I would start with. What would be your thought on that?
Well, first of all, I've had so many more questions.
Right.
Is it acute or is it long term? And I'm going to go, though we tend to, you and I tend to lean away from statements that get us stuck in a corner. I'm going to make one. Just with 10 years plus, I'm going to go with this. That if you're asking the question, the answer is yes.
Yeah.
If you're asking the question, the answer is yes. And based on the nature of the question, you're hoping that it's not. And so if it's not acute, like you sprained your ankle or you ran into a table, and you already know that you have a baseline of stress and tension in your life, then yes, it's inflammation. Now, to the extent of that inflammation, we don't know. And if you want to know, we are happy to have that conversation with you. But I'm going to lean to, if you're already asking the question, then you already know the answer to it and you just want either confirmation or you need help with it. And we're here for that.
I would also add that regardless of what it is, the solution is the same. So it really doesn't matter all that much how you quantify it or diagnose it, if you will. You can put as many words around it as you want, but at the end of the day, it's still going to require you to do the same things to help resolve it. So
this was not a question. It was a statement, and the internet did not qualify it. But it says, I've had a crush on you for the longest time, and you don't even know about it, laughing my ass off. So then I had questions. Is this about me? Is this about you? Is this about both of us? And we're left with no answers. So I'm going to lean that it was more about you than more about me, but it's yet to be seen. Because people.
That's also your bias, is that most things that you're going to probably lean more toward about me than about you. But you know what? We're working on that one day at a time. But you know what? I'm not mad about it if that's what makes them pay attention to us because they have a crush on one of us or both of us. Then so be it.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. It's actually really flattering because it's not how I see myself. So I was like, huh, darn it, people like me. That's nice.
You tried so hard. You tried so hard to make the opposite happen. So hard. And here you are.
And you know what happened? Like way back when I hired this coach and I didn't want to be friends with him. And the next thing you know, I'm wearing crop tops, not wearing sunglasses, training in a sports bar, and, having him buy me an Escalade. It's fine. It's fine. I tried really hard and none of it worked. None of it worked. All my efforts have failed for autonomy. They all failed. Okay. Last question before we get into the cool thing we get to talk about today. What would your present self tell your past self 15 years in the past? So for you, because you're going to be 30 here in a couple weeks. What would you have told 15-year-old Justin Carroll?
Oh. 15-year-old Justin Carroll. See, there's a part of me that wants to just be very, loving here and, motivational and everything else. No, it's not going to work like that. Probably that you're going to want a 4-door truck instead of an extended cab.
Okay.
Mainly because you're going to want to fit more people in the back of that truck than you think. That's what I would tell myself. You're going to want more room in the back of that truck than you think. And you can take that wherever your mind desires to take that statement.
I'm like, do you want to expand on that statement?
Not really. Not really. I didn't want to expand on that statement, but there's
I kind of want to expand on that statement.
15 years old, I was like starting to drive, right? Or starting to drive on the road.
Okay.
And I always had the cool truck, right? Like had mud tires. It was jacked up. Like I was too cool for school when I was in high school, right? So, or so I thought. I mean, I was a total nerd. But the thing that always ended up happening was everybody wanted to take my truck because it was kind of decked out and I had the mud tires and we could go places that we couldn't go in other people's truck and all that kind of stuff. And of course I had girlfriends. So, yes, that made it into the equation too. But the long and short of it is I would have been able to throw bigger ride-alongs had I had more room in the back of the truck.
I'll just leave it there. I don't think anything more needs to be said.
You don't think it does?
No, it'll go back to who has a crush on who at the beginning. They'll be like, oh, I like Justin a whole lot more now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I either qualified myself or disqualified myself. And either way, more people are going to make it to us to actually want to hear what we have to say. So what would Stacy say to 15-year-old Stacy? And I can't wait for this answer.
Oh, we're going back to 15-year-old Stacy.
Oh, not 15. I'm sorry. You said 15 years ago. I'm sorry.
Hold on. We can make it fair.
What is that for you? 20 something?
No, I would have been 30.
Oh, 33.
31. 32.
30,
yeah.
Okay. 32. Yep.
Yeah. So I would have said you make it through because you have to think about 15 years ago. Benjamin was 8 months old.
Gotcha.
So I had 6 kids. Completely drowning in motherhood with more than I could ever endure. Wondering how I was going to make it through and if it was worth it. I would breathe more, make myself a priority, and release a whole lot more outcomes. Those last 15 years could have looked a lot different knowing what I know now. Now, 15-year-old Stacy, that's a completely different conversation. We'll save for a completely different podcast.
We'll have to get that story on a different podcast. I will say this now that I'm kind of thinking about it and your answer. See, this is why I like when you answer first, because it makes me think so much more like differently. Because all I could think of was like a surface level answer is like, what would like stupid 15-year-old Justin think? You know what I mean? I wouldn't be able to comprehend it, but if I was talking to myself, I would say, spend some more time talking with your mom and your dad, like separately, right? Spend some more time learning from your mom and your dad, because I think if there's anything that I've done in the past, probably 10 years of my life, probably 8 years, I would say, that I wish I would have done more of is see things. Of course, you don't have the maturity to do it anyway, but see things more so from my parents' perspective, because I see how true they end up becoming, even if it's in a different context, right? Because my parents, people who are not in my generation, didn't grow up with the same influences, obviously, right? But at the same time, I think there's a lot of nothing, everything old is new again eventually, right? The same concepts come to bear no matter what the context is. So I wish I would have learned that earlier.
Okay, I have one more fun question. Just complete nonsensory. If there was a way to make a time machine and there was 15-year-old Stacy and 15-year-old Justin in the same room, do you think we would have even given each other the time of day?
No.
Hell no.
Absolutely not. Nope, because I know what 15-year-old Stacy was looking for, and that's probably not something that I was willing to provide.
So much I want to say right now, and I'm not going to say it. I will give you still qualify for the clan of fly for a white guy, but there are some things I was definitely not looking for at 15 that you check that box for. So,
well, I was also completely different looking, acting, being not completely different, but looking, acting, being individual at 15. I mean, obviously we're all like young, dumb, and not even, we were prepubescent at 15. So I was like, okay, well, how do you look back and say, oh, I would have done things so much differently? I was like, well, I mean, we're all going to be idiots. So it really doesn't matter.
well, the crappy part is I was built at 15 the same way I'm built now, just thinner. So I had definitely had assets going for me. So no, I don't think we would have talked. I probably would have been like, he's nice, but you're right. No, I was looking for trouble at 15. You weren't trouble.
True. Now you're looking for different kind of trouble.
Yeah, that's why you're here. Okay. Moving in to what we're actually here to talk about today. Well, not actually, but really what we plan to talk about today is kind of really special. And it actually, can we give your mom credit for starting this conversation?
Absolutely, we can.
Oh, yeah. Your mom totally gets credit for this conversation.
We'll just make this a parent forward episode here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, starting this conversation, and then we added to it with what we got to do. The really cool thing we got to do this past Saturday, which we teed up pretty well on the podcast with Renee, because we got to do it for Foster Source, which is Renee's organization. But emptying that, my mom sent me a podcast, which is really a sermon from Argenta United Methodist Church down in North Little Rock, Arkansas, where me and Paige lived before we had Kason. And this small Methodist church, so I grew up Methodist, was right down the road from us, and the preacher was a really young guy. They started this church in a coffee shop, all that kind of stuff. So his sermons is the podcast for the church. That's essentially what it is, right? And so she sent me his Easter sermon, and I don't like subscribe to him or anything, but I do listen to him. Like when mom sends them to me, she's like, hey, I think you really like this, and all that kind of stuff. So she sent it to me, and I was listening to it, and a lot of things struck me that we talk about conceptually, things that cross lines, concepts that, I mean, at the end of the day, there's nothing that a preacher's going to say in a sermon that doesn't cross lines of what we talk about with each other. It's just in a different context, right? And so you listened to it and you gleaned a lot from it, took some notes and things like that. And then what we did, we turned that into a podcast a couple days ago that did not go the way that we planned it to, between technology issues and tiredness and just lack of focus and being on the same wavelength. We were like, let's scrap that one. So let's do this one. And here we are.
So before we talk more about that, I just wanted to preempt, because really this podcast is called it's a threshold of tolerance. And so that might sound like a really different perspective of where we're going, but I wanted to start with what gave us the idea was really that podcast that your mom sent before we get into Saturday, because just a little bit of foreshadowing of all of it, because this is going to be a really good story. So Saturday, Justin and I got the opportunity to speak to about 50 foster parents and tell my story. It was finding your way back to health, a trauma caregiver's approach. So, which is my story of coming from out of survival mechanisms into thriving and healing and all of that, and going back to the place to bring buckets of water, so to speak, to the people who are still standing in the fire and let them know that it was absolutely possible to do so. Now, the challenge for me is I hadn't told the totality of the story for 7 years. And as I was preparing for it, it was just going back to relive some of it was really challenging. And so I'm great in telling the story in a room full of strangers, but I knew that there was things I shared that you had never heard before. And it's one thing to tell these stories to a room full of people and know that they're going to be inspired and be like, oh my gosh. But there was a level of vulnerability I knew that I had to show to connect with people that isn't just in our day to day. Not that I wouldn't want to, but it's just not something that came up. And so there was a moment, and I can't remember it. I'm so glad that I can't, and you don't either for the most part. I watched your face, and as I was thinking about this the other day, what a juxtaposition of the last time one of your facial expressions rocked me. Because this time, in a room of 50 people for a class education setting that's going to be online forever, you and I watched something shift in the way that you saw me. And instead of going, oh my gosh, he heard my story, it's too much for him, I lost my coach, which was the case, over a year and a half ago, I went, he sees me more now. And it didn't hit me until that last podcast we recorded that will never see the light of day. Just the juxtaposition of time that changes of like when I see something hit you, especially in a story that I tell, my understanding of how you understand it and just the safety in the context of the relationship. So for me, Saturday was really pivotal because I actually got to go back and stand in the place where I was and give people hope to a place that I had none, and give them solutions and strategies and more than hope for them to not only do this job of being a foster parent or a kinship parent or even a caseworker well, but for them to end up more whole after it. And we knew that our perspectives would be different. So what did Saturday mean to you, and how did it impact you in what we got to do?
Before I say what it meant to me, I will say I think something that I've come to conclusion of, you've never told the story post being done with the court case.
Mm-hmm. You're right.
So that was a level of kind of post hoc retelling and a little bit of distance from it. You see what I'm saying? Because you were still, maybe the last time you told it, the last time you told a partial of it or whatever it was, last time it was mentioned, maybe it was still a little bit more fresh. And I think this time, and again, there were parts that I have never heard or things that you said that I haven't heard said the way that you said them, that you had a little bit of a different spin on, even though the principles of the story are the same, right? The main points are still the same. But what it meant to me was that although I don't have personal experience with the same things that these foster parents, kinship caregivers, those people have been through, I can relate to the feelings that they possess, right? Maybe not in like the intensity that they possess them, but times of being lost, times of feeling hopeless, times of being overwhelmed or confused. And I felt, and this is just the way my brain works, that if you can have some structure and a way to at least stop and assess, at least stop and look at like, okay, here's the bigger picture here. This kind of, and I don't really like that terminology, but this gives me one little bitty piece to move one step forward instead of scrambling and hoping that what I'm doing is right. It's more of a, let me give you, although I can't predict the outcome for you, let me give you a little bit of certainty that the process that you're using is a tried and true process, that you're not guessing your way through decision making, that you're actually doing your due diligence to make the best decisions that you can, and the outcomes will support themselves the more you use the process. And so that was why it was important to me, because I'm a much more logical thinker in terms of, you being the better storyteller in terms of, strengths and weaknesses, is like you're the better storyteller, but maybe I'm a little bit more better organizer and presenter in the way that information comes across. And it's like, okay, hey, when we go these things together, Stacy knows everything that you're going through, and she can back you up in those experiences. But also then there's me who says, okay, hey, I can't sympathize or I can't empathize with you, right? I can look down in the well and go, man, that really looks dark down there, but I haven't been down at the bottom of that well before. But I can go, hey, here's how you build a pulley and a rope and a bucket, and start to pick yourself up out of that well a little bit more every single time. There's a system, there's a process to that. And so why it was important for me is that I've always known that I wanted to help people. Like that's the reason every trainer, every online nutrition coach, everybody who's in the fitness industry says that they want to do what they do. I love helping people, and that's great. Everybody helping people is amazing. But more specifically, when people not hear something they've never heard before, but if people hear something that goes, never figured out that related to me, that's the thing that I'm looking for. And you actually said it while ago from a client of yours, just like the thing that makes people lean forward and go, that's interesting, tell me more, or I've never thought of it that way. I don't look for that in every single conversation I have, but over time, you say enough words, somebody's going to say, never thought of it that way. So that's what I do it for.
It was a really cool experience, and we get to do, stay tuned, we get to do some really cool stuff with us. And where we want to take this in this conversation, and it does actually become a conversation of faith, is that we had this big emotional thing on Saturday that was professionally so fulfilling, personally so fulfilling, and then relationally between us so fulfilling for us to get to do this together. And it was so well received. Like the feedback we got, I think, made it for me even more emotional because we have this vision of what we want to do and how we want to serve people. And we cultivated and created and crafted this presentation of the best of me and the best of you. And literally we're like, here's us. And we hope this is going to land. And not only did it land, but it landed with impact of people going, I want more. And not that they necessarily want more of us. I mean, Kevin definitely wants more of you, but that people want more solutions. And so where I want to tie this and bring this is, so we have the message from the church in Arkansas, such a good message that I was listening to on Sunday morning. And as I'm listening to this, I'm also packing my house, which is really an act of faith that my husband does not yet have a job in Texas. It is my estimation that we have about 12 weeks till this move happens. And there's so many things that need to fall into place for this to happen. And I was getting up all in my feels and getting a little anxious and nervous. And we just came off Saturday. I'm listening to this message that your mom sent, and I'm packing, and I find this journal from 8 years ago. And I was debating, like, do I keep it? Do I not keep it? What's in it? And I started to open it, and it was a journal that I had written in at my my trauma-informed trainings that I was getting certified through. And in it, there was a bunch of yoga stuff, a bunch of mindset stuff, a bunch of nervous system stuff. And there was a spot where they had us do goals and vision setting. And in it, I had written to create a curriculum for DHS and social service and foster parents. And I read that in light of the timing and went, holy crap, we just did that. We literally just did that. Now, the piece of the story that I didn't tell that also matters when you're talking about timing and synchronicity and alignment is that this workshop for Foster Source was 7 years almost to the day, the exact same weekend as the last time that I had taught for them. And so as I was looking at all of this anxiety and all these emotions of going back to a challenging story and then looking at what's in front of us, it was such a moment of clarity that goes, hold on, take a moment and just glean perspective. And that's where I'm gonna hand this over to you to guide us to the next piece of the story.
So do you want me to take it to the vision that you've had, like the 12-week things?
Yeah, let's talk. Well, because these 12 weeks just aren't mine. They're yours too. Of what happens in 12 weeks? Where were we 12 weeks ago? And what's possible in 12 weeks?
So really what I took away from it when you were telling me how you found the journal and that you wrote that 7 years ago, 8 years ago. We wrote that 8 years ago. You did the yoga training 7 years ago, but that you cast that vision a long time ago and you started working toward it, but it wasn't like you carried that thing around with you and were like, oh yeah, don't forget, 1 year later I wrote this, 2 years later I wrote that, you know what I mean? You didn't just harp on it, but subconsciously you were moving toward it and what you were learning and the, relationships you were building and things like that. And so that being a more long-term vision and, fruit of that vision, now you have this passion planner activity that you do, right? Where you set the weekly intentions and you started doing that at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And there was no way that we could have guessed at the beginning of the year, what the first 12 weeks of the year would bring and what these next 12 weeks of the year will bring. Because I think we've just now surpassed probably week 12, 13, 14 of the year. I don't really know exactly, but we're just over 3 months into the year. Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Sorry, my timeline gets messed up a little bit. And so that we can now pay attention to some trends and go, okay, well, if that happens over the course of 8 years, if we set intentions now and look for those things, right? We see those things a little bit more often because we know what we're looking for. Then what fruits of our labor can we start to see sooner rather than later? At least the beginnings of them. It's not like we're going to say, today, I want to make $1 million, and then in 12 weeks I make $1 million. It doesn't typically work that fast, because you got to remember there's only so much leverage that you can put into the activities of on a daily basis. But you can start to have faith in the process that the work that you're doing matters. It's going to lead to something. There's going to be an outcome that you can lean into or that you can be proud of or whatever in 1 month, 3 months, 1 year, 3 years, that type of thing. And so I think it just goes back to us starting to have, from a long-term standpoint, those type of things that happened to me as well on a more short-term basis. From a long-term and a short-term standpoint, that we started to increase our tolerance for the faith aspect of the journey to go, I can't see it. I don't know how, but I do know what it is that I want to do. And so I'm just going to go ahead and say this. I'm going to go ahead and put this out there, and they're just going to start stepping towards that.
So if I take you back to January 11th, I had a time machine. This is just the episode where Stacy has time machines. 15-year-old Stacy and 15-year-old Justin don't hang out. But today we're going to go back to, our prospective ages, January 11th. If I would have told you January 11th, what would we be doing today? Business-wise, personally, professionally, all of that. Would you have believed me? Would you even said this is possible?
No.
No way. I wouldn't have either. But I will add that it was almost exactly 12 weeks ago that we were both asked, what are your 90-day goals? And my 90-day goals, I said, were my personal excellence in tackling this weight loss resistance, getting the best results for my clients, and building this with you. Like, I said it.
Mm-hmm.
It took a completely different course to that last part. And then we had anticipated and accelerated it. And so I look at the last 12 weeks and go, if that happened and we couldn't see, but we took all the right actions, the next 12 weeks are unwritten. So though I don't see, how we're 4 miles apart 12 weeks from now with my tangible eyes, I can't see that with 100% confidence. I'm taking all the actions to make that happen. And there's a lot of other pieces to that. So how do we, just with us, increase our threshold of faith in the process, in the results, in God, in what we've worked for?
So I think the reason people doubt their faith in things a lot, because that is the basis of what we're talking about here. And whether you believe in God or you believe in the universe or you don't believe or whatever your case may be, you can still relate to this concept, is that you want to see things happen and they don't happen when and where and how you think they should or at all in your mind, right? I would argue to say that they do. You probably miss it. But the concept of working, the work comes before the belief, right? That concept to say, hey, we just need to start taking steps in the right direction and the path will reveal itself as we move down it. Because humans are very black and white. We want to know, where are we going to be in 5 minutes, in 5 weeks, in 5 months, in 5 years? If I'm single, am I going to be married and have kids and live here and make this much money and drive this? And so that what happens is we start to try to control those things to the highest ability. And when reality doesn't meet expectation, we get disappointed. And the more we get disappointed, the less faith we start to have. And then that cycle just continues. We get disappointed, we have less faith. And then at some point we just become cynical. We just become, I don't know if there's a God. I don't know if there's anything other than the outcomes that I determine or I don't determine, those type of things. Like, it still kind of comes back. No, not kind of. It still ultimately comes back to our ego and our sense of control. And this is even on a micro level with people's bodies and how they want to control every single thing, and why coaching doesn't work for a lot of people, quote unquote, doesn't work. People don't allow coaching to work for them because they're so stubborn that they think they can control everything that they do. And if that was the case, they wouldn't need coaching, right? And so this all comes back to these things that people think will satisfy their need. And it's just a cheap version of the thing. Mm-hmm. So, for example, and this is just an easy, cultural example, is things made in America versus things made in China, right? Yep, you can get that dress from Shein or wherever that's made however many countries away and cost you $5. And the second time you wash it, it's probably going to rip. Or you can get it from whatever American handmade company that's going to cost you 5x that amount, 10x that amount, but you'll never have to replace it. It will never tear up if you take care of it properly, right? Mm-hmm. That's the cheap version of the satisfaction that you're looking for in that product. And that's just an easy to explain example. But if you take that, if you dig one level further, that's, I want a better car, not because the car I have doesn't work, but because I want to be noticed or because I have an insecurity, right? There's a desire there that you're just cheapening. So it's not the desire that is the bad thing or the unwanted thing, the dirty thing, I would say, in that situation. It's the way that you're trying to fulfill that desire. And the way that you're trying to fulfill that desire is actually cheapening the payoff that you get from fulfilling it. It's like, ooh, you get a real good rush when you spend the money in that new car. Those keys are in your hand, right? You're in that driver's seat and you get to feel that steering wheel. But you drive it home and a day later, what do you have, right? A shiny new depreciating asset sitting in your driveway and a picture for Instagram, and that's pretty cool. And then life goes on, right? And so, it just kind of comes back to life is hard. And if you let it get you down, you'll just lose faith in it altogether.
I agree. Because that shiny car with the leather seats, it's going to have a juice box and some goldfish crackers on the floor in like 24 hours. And that, $60,000, $80,000 depreciating asset is just a place for your kid to puke on a road trip and like throw something at you that you're going to have to reach down and throw back. I mean, if you're not in the childhood raising era, that might not relate to you, but Cars are just tiny mobile houses that children also destroy. I have teased that I won't get a nice car until Isaiah isn't in our care, because we keep things that are, we don't care if they get destroyed because we don't know what he is going to do.
Well, keeps you on your toes at the very least.
Can I be less on my toes? Taking that, I think this leads back to Saturday, and I can say that this was really true for me, is that I don't stay there very long. But hardship in the past, for short periods of time, made me doubt what I knew and create stories to be less. And I see that in a lot of people too, that we look at the circumstance and create a story around it that actually just continues to be perpetuated. If I would have believed it was always going to be this hard when I was, 15 years ago, that mom, I wouldn't be here today. And I mean, had one of the hardest stories that I know of. But I see people succumb to this. Not that you're not going to have hardship. You are going to have hardship. That is a guarantee in life. It's the story that you make about it. Is it temporary? Is it permanent? Because everything is figure outable, and everything with enough time can be course corrected. And so the thing that I want to do, and it's my desire to do, and everybody they get to talk to, because we just attract people who typically who have had more challenging pasts, is they look to us going, is there a different way? And so part of the fun thing about getting to tell this story publicly, that this wouldn't be a super inspiring story to watch if Ted and I had like 50 grand in the bank and I could just retire him now. And it was just like we could pick whatever house we wanted and didn't have to get services for Isaiah in 12 weeks. There's a lot of different things, but a lot of this is doing the work, releasing the outcome and waiting for it to happen, and not biasing it to all the hardship behind us. I'm banking on all the things that I've watched go right, and detaching intentionally from the things that didn't turn out the way that I want, to still chase what I see in my mind's eye, to see the thing that I know, that I know, that I know, that I know, regardless of what's in front of me. And you and I had this conversation the other day. I'm like, Justin, am I delusional? And we use delusion as like, you define it better than I do. So people aren't going, listen to that line and go, oh, she straight is. I've watched her. That girl is straight delusional. Justin, what are you doing? How do you define delusion, and kind of where we take this so that it has a little bit more clarity?
Yeah. So when we talk about delusion, we just talk about there are things that you see that you create that just haven't happened yet. And that's a delusion, right? I mean, it's a false reality by all technical terms, because it doesn't exist. It just doesn't exist yet. And so, your delusion is the timeline in which you get to move your family. And that's a positive delusion, right? It's not like, I wish things were this way. It's like, hey, this is a delusion that I'm working to create within my own little sphere of influence here, within my own little world. I would say the other thing is crazy. Like the thing that people are actually saying is delusional, in the sense that most people are going to think about it, is really what we would say is like, that's crazy. Like that's never going to work, or that's just an unrealistic, or that's irresponsible. That would be closer to the delusional, typical definition of delusional.
So what do you say about attaching a piece of your journey to your identity?
So I think that part of the reason that I think it's important, let me take that back. Part of the reason that it is important to monitor what you're thinking about, and to have structure around how you go about making decisions, which is why it was important for us to present to this foster parent community, is once you see yourself as this thing, right? I see myself as fat. I see myself as a failure. I see myself as a foster parent. I see myself as someone who's always overreacted. I see myself as someone who always avoids conflict, right? If you see yourself as X, take a look back and see, where did that start to happen to you? Where did you start to attach that to your identity? Because I would almost guarantee you that you attach that negative attribute to yourself because it happened to you 1 to 3 times in recent succession. And so because you attach that to your identity, now all of a sudden you've made that a self-fulfilling prophecy for you the rest of your life. It's just a story that circulates into your head about everything, and it just sabotages all your efforts in the long or the short of it. And so this can also happen in a positive way too. Is, I see this with people who do 75 hard. They try to attach that to a part of their identity because they did it one time. Sometimes this doesn't happen with everybody. I'm just saying they see themselves as, okay, now that I've done it, I can never go back to the person I used to be. And of course, the point of the program is for it to have a permanent influence on you, but influence is not control, right? A permanent influence is, hey, that taught me something and I want to keep that with me. But that doesn't mean I have to define myself by the rules of this program. That's not what it's for. It's not for definition. It's for a sharpening of the axe, but you still carry that axe on a daily basis. And it's going to get dull and you're going to have to resharpen it. But that doesn't mean that you consider yourself the person that always has a sharp axe, because then when that doesn't happen, because that's unrealistic expectation, you're going to be disappointed, going back to losing your faith, right? Going back to losing your tolerance for failure, your tolerance for setbacks. And so then you start to become this, doubtful person about everything. To not steer too far off course here, what I'm trying to say is, don't attach any one part of the journey that you've been on, and this is the journey of life, to your identity. Because if you do that, when you do that, good or bad, like whether it's a positive attribute, like you made $100,000 one year and now you're the person who makes $100,000, setting yourself up for disappointment. But also if it's a negative attribute, like I've never been able to lose this weight, so I'm just the fat person, that's also going to be a detriment. And so the work comes in trying to be somewhere in the middle and going, hey, all these things are great and some of these things are not so great. I'm going to work to not be too attached to any of it and see it as something that I did really good at one point in time. I'll give you an example. When I was living at my parents' house, right before I started to kind of move out on my own, I believe it was probably right before me and Paige got married, a summer or something like that, I literally woke up almost daily at 3:45 or 4 o'clock in the morning, went out into a shed that was detached from the house, no AC, no heat, and worked out on homemade equipment, like homemade pull-up bar, homemade squat rack, homemade bench press. Like the only thing that was bought from a store was the bar and the bumper plates. And I did that for a while. Like I still have videos of that. And I sit there and I look and I'm like, man, where did that guy go? That guy that used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get after it, more often than not, and then go work on the farm after that. I mean, that was all done by 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. And then I'd go work on the farm after that. And so, of course, I had much less responsibility than I do now as far as having a wife and kids and finances and all that. But the person is still there, but I'm not disappointed because I'm not that person anymore, because I understand what my priorities are. And so, yes, do I want to bring part of that person back the way that guy thought? Of course. But at the same time, there were things that I was doing back then that I would have never learned how to do if I was not the person that I am now. And so what I'm getting at is, I could be disappointed that I'm not, I'm almost 30, that I'm not, 22-year-old Justin anymore, and I don't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get after it. But when I zoom out and I look at the total scope of my life, I go, hey, you didn't lose that quality. You just haven't practiced it in a while. Mm-hmm. You just haven't practiced it in a while. And so you're falling out of practice. And so my one suggestion to everybody is that start to practice your little threshold of faith, your little threshold of tolerance for a setback, right? Write something down, or focus on a thought consistently of something that you want to see happen. Hey, I want to see myself, save $1,000 this month. I don't know what it is. And start to work to try to make that happen. But you're not really, the reason I'm struggling to define this because it's not a goal. You're just writing it down as a way to concentrate and look for it and start to focus on it and start to see ways that it could happen. And so when maybe you don't reach that goal, maybe you don't reach that, whatever it is, if it's a specific thing, maybe I just want to be the person who saves money. Maybe that's what you write down and not a goal, right? I am the type of person who X. And so you start to see yourself just almost naturally, but it's not natural, right? Almost without thought, starting to maneuver in a way the world seems to conform for you instead of against you, that you're going, oh yeah, I don't really need that extra coffee that I pick up 3 days a week, or I probably could do without going out to eat that many times. I could probably just cut it back a little bit. And so you start to see these things, and that's just in that example, but you start to see evidence that you could become that type of person. And then that just drives your character development, drives your motivation. I hesitate to use that word, but that just drives your oomph to go and start to look for more ways to do that. And so me and you have done this in business a lot, is like, I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're going to start talking to these people, and then things are just going to, and now here we find ourselves in like, man, we better get ready. Like we better create a structure because things are going to happen beyond what we could have even anticipated in the first 90 days of establishing a business. And we're going to have a good problem, but a problem nonetheless of being inundated and not enough of us to go around. So was that talking in circles? Does that explain the concept well enough for people to understand?
First of all, you never talk in circles, even if you think you do. I can't tell you what other people think of that, but it was abundantly clear to me, and I thought it was really helpful. I'm going to give people a little bit I'm going to tell you how I do it in this week. And so I've got my passion planner right here because Justin doesn't know what I write during the week. I meet with friend Kelly. We sit on we do this every Sunday, and we go over 5 things: personal, professional, relational, travel, and physical. Those are the 5 things that Kelly, and we make space for like the things we couldn't even fathom, like just throw it to a wall and see what sticks. And so because people are listening to us, they're obviously drawn to us in some way. What I've had, especially since the weight of what we get to do is increasing. And I think about it when you're lifting. That weight isn't bad. You put another plate on that bar and you're like, I've trained for this. And we've trained for this. The weight that we get to carry professionally and even relationally, we have trained for. So there's not anything that we could be handed that I have any fear of us dropping the bar on. But it's that our communication would be open and fun and with heart, and we would have synchronicity, and it would just have a rhythm and a cadence that we couldn't explain. And so for 6 weeks, that's been the thing that I've been focused on. Like for us professionally, like our communication would be that. So for me, whatever that day was 2 days ago, that was an off day. Because if I look at our communication over the last 6 weeks, since our threshold of tolerance, even with each other, has been increased on what we ask of each other, how much we engage with each other, new levels that we're engaging with each other. And it's that we have had that. But it was my intention every week to also cultivate it, curate it, and look for it. And you didn't know that that's what I'd been working on each week. Like that was the intention for our professional relationship of like, hey, we're going to do this. And then every week I'm like, wow, that was an amazing conversation. And we find solutions to the mountains that we're looking at, not the problems. And so when we're looking at how to create this vision and how to have more faith and how to build these thresholds of tolerance, is I'm looking at the solutions to our mountains and not speaking to the mountain at all. And if that was going to be the one thing that people tend to look at the mountain and go, how am I going to climb it? I have this much debt, or I have my body is in pain, or I don't have the ability to do this. Whatever you speak to out loud, you create more of. Hands down. It's how the brain is wired. Go research a reticular activation system. The thing you speak is actually the thing you make more of. And so for us, me personally and us professionally, is we're not speaking to the mountains. We see them. We are not in denial that they are in existence. We had a meeting yesterday that gave us a views of some mountaintops, and everybody looks at mountaintops as a challenge. And I'm like, that's a mountain I want to climb it. And yesterday we were handed an opportunity professionally that was some pretty big mountains to climb. And today we're even sitting back at our meeting this afternoon going, okay, what's our solution? What's our strategy? We're not looking at the mountain terrified of it at all, going, how do we speak to the solution of it? And when you speak to solutions, it changes your identity and increases your threshold for what you're willing to do. The reason that I get to do what we're as moving my family with such confidence right now is this is my first rodeo. I've packed houses before without having answers. I've moved across states. This is not probably, as per Justin Carroll, the least risky thing I've ever done when I was freaking out about it, 6-7 months ago. I think you looked at me going, I'm not understanding. You're speaking to me, I know it, but I'm not
Help me understand, my friend. Help me understand.
Help me understand. Do you watch your life? Do you know you? And so
have you met you before?
So I'm here for it. I'm here for all of it. I'm here for every piece of it.
You know what your mountain analogy is starting to make me think of?
Ooh, tell me.
Have you ever heard the song "The Climb" by Miley Cyrus?
I have heard the song "The Climb" by Miley Cyrus.
There you go. That's all you need to know. That's your homework this week. Go listen to that song. That's Stacy's heart song is "The Climb" by Miley Cyrus.
I'm not going to give you a single lyric, even though it's playing in my head right now.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it.
Oh man.
I want to stay on your good side today. I don't want to push your threshold of tolerance. We've got important things to do today. So I'm going to withhold. There's always going to be another mountain and you're going to want to make it move. I'm going to keep that on the inside. I'm not going to say it out loud.
Twice. You're not going to say it out loud twice. I got it. But with that being said, I think that's a good place to let people marinate on is where are you letting doubt and your previous failures decrease your faith in the process? And those are intentionally vague terms because that's not going to be the same thing to me as it is to you. And like Stacy said, she has her own way, her own process of casting a vision, trying to increase her faith, working toward that thing. I have the way that I do that. And although our systems are always trying to improve and change, and you don't know you can't get better at anything unless there's a problem to solve. So the miscommunications and off day that we had 2 days ago was hey, here's a test. Does the communication system work or does it not? Does it need to be improved? Are there things that could be better? Absolutely. Okay, let's start tacking away at the things that could be better. The next time it happens, it'll be another threshold that we'll get to and be like, man, Stacy is really throwing a lot of those song quotes out today. I'm really, really annoyed with her. I'm just going to let her know, hey, tone it down. Okay, cool. Communication, heard, felt, seen, done, right? And all jokes aside, you have to, if things go smoothly, you're not getting better. That's just the bottom line. So as trite as it might be to say, there's no such thing as failures. There's only more opportunities to get better. And so, take that how you will. And if you have, more words to add to that or more questions to ask us, please do. That is what we do this for. Talk to us on social media, or, if you have our personal phone number, I guess you could text us too, but we don't just give that out on the daily. But especially if you have a crush on us.
Gosh, could you imagine?
Yeah, that'd be weird.
That would be so weird. Or maybe it wouldn't, but I mean, I'm still so curious.
No, it
Can
definitely
I
would.
add one more thing?
Yes, you can.
I love how quickly we repair. Like we didn't let it linger. So it's like real life. If people wonder, like, do we apply the things that we talk about? We're actually living them out loud and you just get to see it.
Right.
That the friction is actually what makes us better. And though we don't look at each other in the morning and be like, bring it on. Annoy the crap out of me, Stacy. Do it. Push all of my buttons to test my threshold of tolerance. When we accidentally learn, we're learning, we repair quick. So if it's not something that resonates with you, repair quickly. Like embrace the friction and then go for the solution. Don't let it linger.
Bingo. And with that, we appreciate all of you lovely people for watching, listening. If you want to see me wink and stick my tongue out, you can go to about minute 3:30-ish in the YouTube video, and it'll be right there. And, within the next minute, and you'll be able to see that awesomeness. And if you want to hear Stacy recite lyrics, then you're just going to have to listen a little bit longer and stick around for that. And so, like I said, have a great day, and we'll see you next time.